I'm here now. Next time, put up a poll asking if you'll be on next time. I'm fashionably late. I've told you guys before. I run on BMT, Black Man Timing. But now, big up C, so for keeping goods. Big up G in the building, deserve victory. Love to see that in here. Matt G in the building as well. Big up T, great win. Come on, you Gunners. And Shay, love to see that as well, guys. We're going to be starting very shortly. Wagwan, everyone. I hope you're doing well. And what a win! A massive victory for Arsenal. Yes, against Manchester City. Wow. As you can see, I'm sweating. I can see the shine, the glisten off my face right here. I am hot and I have been bouncing up and down pause. But you know what I mean by that, guys. Been running all over the place, getting this stream sorted, watching the game, listening, again, watching bits of the game back, listening to the post-match analysis, looking at your guys' thoughts on Twitter, in the group chats or whatever, guys. This is a huge victory, and you can kind of sense it from many Arsenal fans right now, as it is a massive psychological edge that we finally got over beating Manchester City. 12 games, and we finally got there. It wasn't pretty. We'll discuss each scenario, all the match events, all the key performers, all the things that we definitely need to talk about, because this is it's a match reaction show. It's free flowing. We'll just see how it goes. We base it off a lot of you guys in the comments here as well. But I am joined by my fellow Gooner, who is someone that I met over at the Gooner Talk channel. Big up Tom. And I've been on a few shows with him as well, but it's a pleasure to have him on the channel for the first time. And it's my brother, Alex. You guys who have seen me or we interacted with me from the Gooner Talk TV, you'd have definitely seen him as well. But how are you, my brother Alex? How are you feeling?
Oh, it's been a fantastic weekend. Yeah, I'm feeling really good. Obviously, watched the game. Had a great time. I was saying to T before the game that one of my housemates is a City fan, but I haven't seen her yet, so I'll bring that up when I do.
I don't think you'll be seeing her for a while
No,
either.
not for a while. But no, like T said, met him on TGT. We've been on a few shows. I'm at uni, so I'm often around. Don't have any work commitments tomorrow, so yeah, we're
jealous.
just here.
I remember those days, man. I remember those days, but I'm sure there's a lot of football fans that in and around. You'll be walking in with a smile, your chest up high, a bit like William Saliba, of course. But how did you feel? Before we get into the game, and big up to everyone in the chat as well. We've got Wes Bird in the building. We've got the Mr. and Mrs. Well, I've done it the other way around there. But you know what I mean, guys. It's the Mr. and Mrs. W in the building as well. Nice to see you in here. Evening to yourself, Alex. And
Evening.
You did say we'd get a result, but you didn't make a prediction, so that was okay. But yeah, definitely massive victory. Before we get into the game, what was your feelings when you saw that starting lineup? Because I'll be honest, I was kind of bricking it after that. But before I go into my thoughts, what was your thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, I think there's parts of me that were nervous, but I think you can see there's certain reasons for why they picked certain players. Like obviously leaving Saka out is one that I sort of expected so much that I took him out of my fantasy team.
Yeah.
So I wasn't necessarily up. I thought Eddie Nketiah was an interesting one, which I'm sure we'll get into more down the line. It was an interesting one for me, not necessarily just because of the scale of the game, but then watching. I think watching seeing City's lineup, that was a little bit difficult as well because I saw Rico Lewis and I saw Kovacic and I sort of thought, they are missing big players as well. But yeah, I think when you look at ours, I was looking at our bench. I'm thinking there's players who can come on and change the game. It was great to see, obviously, Martinelli, Partey coming back. Other than that, I think the only surprise was probably Jorginho, maybe. But But he actually had a very solid game after all was said and done. I don't think he did much wrong, trying to play out from the back with obviously Raya being a little bit shaky as it came.
Yeah.
But you know, I enjoyed it, to be honest. I was feeling up for it, but obviously you're always nervous playing City.
Yeah, 100%. And the reason why I was feeling like nervous as I did when I saw the lineup was mainly because of I thought Arteta might go with that back four that we saw against Liverpool, where we saw Tomiyasu move out to the left. And I did actually, I thought that maybe Arteta would do something a bit out of the ordinary, which we have seen him do at certain points as well, and try and have this proper tactical chess match as it did turn out to be with Pep. I thought he would still keep Zinchenko in the team, maybe have him into that midfield spot. I thought he would kind of double up with Rice and not kind of leave him as a lone six, and he did that with Jorginho. And I had a big debate with Wilf. Big up to yourself, Wilf. On the preview show late last night, whether if he does want to double up in there and he doesn't want to bring the Tomiyasu, I would have started with a Jorginho, and it's a big call. Like, it is a massive call to do so, because the last time we saw him at the Emirates in a big home game was against Spurs, where he did make that error, and that's where I think a lot of Arsenal fans thought, okay, you know, that's probably a bit where the trepidation came from. But the real part where I thought, oh no, was seeing Eddie Nketiah up front. That's where the confidence started to dissipate, and it's sad because we're not being totally disrespectful to Eddie Nketiah when we say this, but we know his limitations, and I do think a part of the reason why we haven't quite clicked in the attack yet is because we have Eddie Nketiah as our main striker, and he's not stylistically the same to Gabriel Jesus. He's just not quite at that level, at that quality that we have seen. But hey, we'll talk about his performance as well. But those are the feelings going into the game. But before we talk about key match events, man, how that starting lineup how they started in the first half and how they managed the second half until the substitutes came on. Okay, I was impressed to see the growth from that first 20 minutes, which did look very nervy. You could see from back to front, Raya, Gary Neville. I'm sure you was watching on the TV as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was quite annoying though. What was your
he's often annoying,
yeah.
Gary Neville, and I watch a lot of football, and he's annoying across most games that he comments on, not just Arsenal ones. Obviously, I get slightly more personal when he talks about Arsenal, but I think I think a lot of pundits have been footballers, but not all footballers should be pundits, you know. So it's one of those. I enjoy him. I enjoy it when him and Carragher are together, because they sort of focus on each other more than they do on anything else. But no, I think it was difficult to like, certain people were dropped, and you know, you get a little bit nervous, and you know but then the difference between us in the first and us in the second half was just unbelievable. And I know, you know, one shot on target, people will say what they want about that, but I think we were very nervous to begin with, and actually we're giving them quite a lot of respect, I think, in terms of how we were going about playing. It was a lot of sideways, a lot of backwards. There was a difficulty with the structure of how we were building up as well. I don't think we were able to get it into our actual danger players. City, for all of their work, and obviously with the result at the end, but they did well at, with Odegaard.
Yeah,
you know, not letting him have any time on the ball, and in fact blocking a lot of passing lanes into him. But I think that was one of the things that ended up being their unpicking, is that I think they were quite tired by the end. I don't know, maybe tired isn't the wrong word, but they looked, once the new players came on, they didn't really look like they had much of an answer for players like Martinelli. Once he came on, I think Walker had a really solid game up until that point, and then there's just a little bit too much to do. But
Yeah, it's an excellent point you've raised there because they did excellently well. They carried out their instructions in that first 20 minutes perfectly well. That's why we was having those nerves. We couldn't quite see how we was going to solve that. You could see Arsenal had their thoughts and their plans in mind in terms of how they wanted to play, but City shut that down. Remember the ball being played to Odegaard at one point, and he had two, Rico Lewis and Kovacic at that point, where they closed him down and he was forced to give the ball away. And Raya, his passing options weren't there and he wasn't able to react in time. And there was a lot of hesitation throughout. Rice playing the ball backwards a lot. And we was having those struggles in our build-up in particular. But it kind of reminded me, do you know when we played City last year? We started off really well at the Emirates. They were the ones having the trouble just directly going long, Arsenal being able to get the regains and push them forward. But it's kind of the roles reversed from last year because City made the tactical change and then the second half they got the better. Whereas I thought in this one, we made the tactical change even before the substitutions, Alex. I thought we were much, much better at the start of that second half, playing the ball through well, having options on that right. Jesus, even in the first half when we got the ball to him, he was a threat. He was our biggest threat by a mile. It's come out that Trossard did have like a pull in his hamstring. He was feeling something while he was taken off at half time. But yeah, I wanted to ask you because Mr. W puts it in here before we get into the good bits of the second half. Raya in that first half. What was your thoughts and feelings when you were seeing that about David Raya's performance in the first 20?
Well, he was clearly very nervous, and you could tell it because they talk about, like you say, a lot of the times he was standing still on the ball, and there's often times like Brighton do it really well, where you stand still on the ball with a purpose, but Raya would quite often stand still when you're looking at your left centre back and your right centre back who are split and available to take a pass, but he didn't do it. And you're watching them and you're thinking, Man City can sense it every time he gets on the ball. You could hear there was that silence in the crowd, or mutterings almost in the crowd where you felt like people were nervous for him. And I think that there's this sometimes a desire to play when we don't need to. Like, I think if you're looking at it and you think we could just, I don't want to say shell it it's the wording I can think of at the moment is shell it and get around the second balls. And of course, I'm not saying this in a way of hindsight's great. And obviously our goal ended up coming from us pinging it up. I think it was Tomiyasu won a header and then Havertz set it back down, and the rest is history, as they say. But I think, and I'm not saying we should do that every time, but I think you look, Guardiola was really struggling with Jesus, like really, really struggling, and I think he was playing. He was playing in a. I think he was playing in a position that he's unfamiliar with. I think he's played in a back five for Leipzig when he played there.
Yeah.
But he hasn't played on the left centre back. But he hasn't played as a left back, as far as I know. I might be wrong. And yeah, I think someone's made a good point in the chat. I think playing out of his depth, Mr. Wes, playing out of his depth, and I actually think that the difference is Brentford. Obviously, I think they won there both times last year, didn't they? They beat them twice, but I think the difference is the expectation at Brentford, with respect to Brentford, was a lot less than it is now, because you've got fans, you've got coaches who all want all want to win, and that's a different sort of expectation for a player. You can't be relaxed in the same way that you can when all the onus isn't on you to perform, and you're at home and you're at the Emirates and you're playing in a game that could send us to the top. It's a lot of nerves, and I'm not trying to use that as an excuse, because obviously there were some poor decisions within that performance that he made with regards to passing, but it's the reality, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And the demands are different, aren't they, from David Raya with what he's expected to do? You see a lot Brentford, especially against Man City. They set up in that 5-3-2. Thomas
Mm.
Frank did a great piece on it on Monday Night Football a couple of weeks back. But he's expected just to go long, straight, direct. Ivan Toney and Buemo there. Whereas at Arsenal, he's got the skill set. Arteta's clearly seen that. And I think we can say that we've seen that as well in his early days, that he can get his foot on the ball, play under pressure. But in those moments, he was really struggling. I think Gary Neville did make a big song and dance about it, saying all this because of the narrative and the story behind it. But with Mr. Wesber's point here, saying I think Raya's out of his depth, we have to remember after that first 20 minutes, after that shaky period, I thought it was fantastic. You mentioned with Gabriel Jesus, it was his passes a lot of the time that we was getting the ball out to Jesus. In the second half, his long balls were
Yeah,
on point. He was
yeah,
phenomenal with that, and you could see within that first 20 minutes, he came out for a few crosses, wasn't quite claiming them, was making a hash of them, and maybe Haaland, if he would have gambled on it, he could have scored in that moment.
yeah,
But you saw him relieving pressure from the corners, from those positions, and we have to remember, guys, we've seen Aaron Ramsdale. I know we all love him, but we've seen him in these sort of games. They get the better of him in certain moments, and he steadies a little bit, or he's not quite there. But I think he settled down a lot, and that shows a good mentality in this game for me with David Raya. And after those 20 minutes, we didn't really worry about him at all from that moment. But also, was there anything else that you wanted to say on that point?
No, well, I think in terms of his long passing,
Yeah,
I think we've seen his short passing in a very positive way in the first couple of games that he played. Certainly, um, I think keeping things simple has worked better for him when we were when I've watched him. He plays those sort of passes in for a bounce into bounce for a six really well, like Jorginho or Partey or Rice or whoever it might be. Although I think it's probably more Jorginho and Rice who have done it, obviously, because Partey's been out. But um, I think his long passing is something that I've seen at Brentford for time, and everyone's seen at Brentford. So I think that having an option for him long term, someone to actually hit it to, is something that we could potentially look at doing. I've said for a long time, I think we need another forward. I said it for
yeah,
about 3 seasons that I think we need a striker who's a bit bigger, a bit more like Olivier Giroud. but but no, I think that was pretty much everything on
yeah.
that particular point.
Sure, exactly that. Exactly indeed. And I also wanted to say now, the second half, we've kind of mentioned that was much better performance. Before we get into the key events of the second half, we have to mention this, guys, and because I don't think it would be I know we've won, but that Kovacic, the both incidents, yeah, I'm quite positive. I'm quite sure what you're gonna think on this as well, Alex, because it feels like it's a unanimous decision that Kovacic should have got sent off, whether it's for a straight red card or a double yellow card. It's
Yeah.
a horrendous decision, which thankfully won the game, but it could have proven costly. What was your thoughts when you saw that?
Um, I think the first one could have been a red, probably should have been, but I don't think it's you know I wouldn't say it's stonewall 100% a red card, but I
Mm.
think you know I've seen people sent off for less.
Yeah.
I think the problem for me was the second one more so than the first. If you've given a yellow card, then he's given a yellow card, and VAR can come in and look at it for a red. But for the second one, he hasn't given a second yellow, and
Mm.
VAR can't come in to give it anything on a second yellow. So that was my main problem. Is you look at that, and the first one is probably a red realistically, but then the second one is also horrendous.
Yeah, exactly that. And big up to yourself as well, Reese, and everyone else in the chat. Don't know how Kovacic stayed on. 100% red card was shocking, says Anthony. William says straight red card, studs up, shambolic decisions. Other way around, the first one on Erdegaard was horrendous. Yeah, it's true. And it's poor that we're still having to talk about these things, and the fact that VAR can't get involved in the second one as well. It's because of the ruling. They can't get involved with yellow card incidents. It has to be straight red. The fact that they saw that and they decided not to, even though we just saw last week with Curtis Jones. Yes, neither of them had any intent, but it's all about endangering your opponent. You saw, I don't like the fact that it almost has to be Erdegaard has to break his leg for him to get sent off in that moment. But that's not what we should be doing. We should be trying to clamp down on those, have the consistency, make it clear that if you're doing those things, and the fact that he felt like he could do it again and got away with it, it's a joke. It is a joke. And Wes Bird says here, last season in the same fixture, Bernardo Silva should have been sent off, but this time it's happened again, albeit a different player, but thankfully it didn't cost us. Exactly. I forgot about that last season when he was on a yellow and he should have got another one, only he's playing at left back. It is definitely true. But yeah, Alex, now talk, and guys in the chat, I've put the poll out for you to see who your man of the match is. It's interesting. You guys have gone with Martinelli so far, yeah. But who was your big man of the? Who was your man of the match in this game?
I mean, there's probably, it's difficult, I would say Jesus. My reasoning for that is, and don't get me wrong, Martinelli, when he came on, changed the game. Absolutely outstanding. Changed a lot compared to, not saying Trossard was awful or anything, but compared to Trossard, he just has that extra level that he can take it up. He hyped the crowd up, but I think that Jesus, he made so many things stick and was the only outball we had for sort of the best part of 75, 80 minutes of the game. And I think that, his first touch, his ability to get around players. And yeah, I mean, I've just seen Wes put my second choice would have been Declan Rice, who I mentioned to you in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think he had a game where there maybe wasn't a massive counterpart on City's team who he could come up against, but I think so many times you see him just pick up those balls when they're cleared to the edge, or City's on the break and they stops it. But I actually think defensively, we were very, very good. And watching William Saliba body Haaland a couple of times, with Haaland ended up on the floor complaining, that was great as well. I'm not I'm not a very talented footballer, but I am a defender, so it's one of the funnest bits. So Saliba would also be very good, but I've sort of dodged the question slightly there. But I'd say Jesus for a solid answer.
Yeah, I think we have to talk about all the key performers, to be honest. And because you picked Jesus, he was outstanding as well. In the first half where we were struggling, and we were struggling to try and create things, he was almost trying to do it single-handedly, and he worked really well. He's such in a positive sense, he's a dog in how he works. He will throw his body about, be physical. He's relentless. He doesn't give the defender a moment's breath. And he doesn't let them breathe at all. He just puts himself about, and he's got that X factor where he can make something out of nothing. And this was in the second half. I remember on that right side up against Foden, where where Declan Rice was in the box screaming to lay it back, cut it back for me. It was one shimmy, sent Foden and Vardiol out of the way, and it felt like everything that we tried to create in that first half before the substitutions came on, it came through Gabriel Jesus. So I have no qualms. You saying for him as your man of the match.
90 minutes in a week. People have to put that. This is his third 90 minutes against Man City. And I know he's got the break. People will say what they want about that. But he's come and he's played 90 minutes, and some players can't do that. You know what I mean? But we've got someone who can. So
Yeah.
I think, and that's not a shout out to Saka, by the way, just in case anyone takes it in that sense. It's not.
No. Hey, I wasn't even thinking that until now you said it now.
No.
But when we talk about Gabriel Jesus holistically, when we talk about he's the keys to our season. If we're being real, Alex, the transition that we saw Arsenal make last year with the additions of Zinchenko and Jesus was vital. And up front, he makes everything connect for us. Our best performances in attack have been when he's involved. PSV, we keep mentioning that PSV at home. This is why we always clamour for him to play as that central striker. Give him the freedom. We know his deficiencies. He's not the most clinical, but in terms of how the attack functions as a whole, we've got goals left, right, and centre when we've got our starting 11 fit.
Yeah.
You've seen it today. Even the dangers that we had coming off the bench there. We've seen the best of even Kai Havertz when Jesus has been playing in there. So we know how important this guy is for our season. Outstanding for me and my man of the match. And I'll also want to hear your thoughts on this guy as well, because we'll have to talk about these key players. We're not good. There's plenty of players that we can speak about today. We start off with Jesus. For me, my man of the match, William Saliba. What a performance he's put out there today, and alongside Gabriel, but I want to give a special mention to Saliba at this moment in time. We will definitely discuss about Gabriel as well, because you kind of can't talk about these players without putting them as a duo, because we've seen in that centre back, in that area of defence, it's an area of weakness that we've had in over our time at the Emirates, but it feels like we have a special duo here. I went on AFTV last year after the Wolves game, and I got a bit of stick for it. And I said that Saliba and Gabriel could be our real Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic, the perfect duo. We have one aggressor, one composed one. They have different strengths, but they match each other quite well, like a perfect marriage. But with Saliba today, the task that he had with Hojlund, leaving him isolated in certain areas, like I'm sure you've seen that clip going around on Twitter and social media as well, where it was a shoulder to shoulder with Saliba knocking him down, staying on his feet and putting Hojlund to the ground. That shows you this guy has got everything to make it to the top, and he's got the mentality, the composure to do so. He is an outstanding defender, technically on the ball, under pressure. He can work it in tight areas. When you leave him 1v1 to defend, he's immense. His concentration is something that is very underrated, because we don't, we criticize a lot of defenders when they're not fully concentrated, when they fall asleep in certain moments, but he was able to remain concentrated throughout the game. There was times where if they did get past Declan Rice, he was called into action, and he didn't put a foot wrong today. Saliba, outstanding for me. What have you got anything to say on the big Frenchman?
Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely unreal. I already mentioned about going shoulder to shoulder. That's a no mean feat against Haaland, I'm sure. I've seen him a couple of times in real life, and he's not a small person. I'm 6'3", but he makes me look very small.
Yes, wow.
So it's
I don't want to stand next to you two. Yeah, you made me feel small.
But yeah, I think he's one of those people who provides so much calmness to the rest of the team as well. I think you don't look at the team in the same way anymore. For me, I think it's what Gabriel's needed for a long time, who was another player who I've seen people have put man of the match, but he was very, very good as well. But I think Gabriel was so exposed for quite a significant period of time, and he made some rash decisions. But I think when you're that sort of centre back who wants to get stuck in, but you haven't really got those around you to sort of support you in that, it's a really difficult it's a difficult job to do, But Saliba provides that, like you said, 1v1. I've never felt so confident when somebody's running up next, like a winger's running against him, a striker's running against him, a fullback, whatever it might be. I always feel confident that they're not going to get past him. And I think the decision making in terms of when to leave Haaland in space and when to go. If you don't think you're going to win the ball off Haaland, then don't go near him. In a sense of if he's got his back to you, there's no point in trying to come through him because he just rolls you. So it's that decision making where not he didn't do it at all today, but in the past, I know Gabriel and Rob Holding and various other centre backs have tried to have that physical battle with Haaland, but there's no point.
Definitely.
To an extent. Obviously, we've seen Saliba shoulder him to the ground, but I don't think that was necessarily a physical battle as such. It was more Haaland was looking for something. But on the other side of it, it's great to see him complaining on the floor. So
exactly. That's it right there. And we'll talk about his partner and Williams man of the match. And I think a few more people have said him as well in Gabriel Magalhaes. Yeah, outstanding once again. And this is someone who missed the first couple of games of the season. And there was a lot of talk. Is his future in doubt? Has he had a falling out with Arteta? But for whatever reason that is, and we won't discuss that tonight because that's for another show, or probably old ground that we don't want to step on with that one. But he is back in the team, and he has been faultless this season. Yeah. And do you know what? If you remember at this point last year, I think we were a point ahead of what we were now. We had a lot more errors from our centre back partners as a whole. With Gabriel, he was having a tough time against Fulham, Spurs penalty, for example. I feel like he's really eliminated them out of his game at this point of the season. Yes, it's still early days. We've still got 30 games left to go, and the proof will be in the pudding at the end. But we can only react to what we're seeing right now. Gabriel Magalhaes looking a lot more calm and assured. He's looking better on the ball too, picking out his passes. I saw a few switches out to the right to Jesus that were on point, and this is something that's not really a strength of Gabriel's game. No. He's come leaps and bounds in that part of his game, which was once a weakness, and now he's not. It's not far off a strength in what we're doing now. So, what was your thoughts on Gabriel Magalhaes this afternoon?
I think it's a good point that you make about him coming on in terms of on the ball, and I think it's a byproduct of the system that we play. I think you look at, and I'm not saying every time we should do it, and it's caused me a lot of stress, but playing out from the back and you just keep doing it, and you're doing it at such a high level where people are pressing you and you're playing in the Premier League. If you keep doing it, you're either going to get better or you're going to make loads and loads and loads of mistakes. And I think, he made a few mistakes, not just in terms of on the ball, but I also think in terms of his rashness and, getting penalties and bookings. But today and over the last few games, just very, very, very good. I think he's the one who's not afraid to hit it up the line, but I think there's a difference between clearing it and trying to fight and putting it in an area. You talk about percentage passing, as sort of shelling it, but hitting it into channels or playing a switch when you can, those are things that can get us out of situations whereby we don't need to be under pressure. Sometimes relieve it. And I think it was told from the first goal kick we took. And I may be remembering this wrong, but the first goal kick we took, I think Raya said, "Everyone go away. I'm gonna shell this up," and he played it long, and I was like, "Yeah, good," because I think sometimes you've got to relieve that, and I think that's something that he's very good at doing. Is relieving pressure now rather than bringing it on, which I think maybe he did in a couple of his decisions. Trying to play. I think every now and again you've got to mix your game up a bit, in terms of, you can shell it, you can play short, but sometimes he plays those balls straight into the striker, little straight ones. But I think it's a really really good thing to see that we have a centre back partnership that it seems to be sticking at the moment, because I think it also unlocks Ben White, because And that's one thing that I'm really missed at the beginning of this season. Is Ben White as a right back, I think, is so good. And obviously Saka didn't play today, but the relationship he has with Saka is one that, in offensively, and his sort of knowledge of when to hold, when to overlap, when to underlap is very, very good in terms of his relationship with Saka, and I think it makes him a better player. So, yeah, I've gone from Gabriel to Ben White there, but here we go.
Nah, but that's totally how these match reactions go. Don't
Yeah.
worry, I love to go on a tangent myself, but nah, 100%. We'll talk about Ben White as well in much more detail when we go into the player ratings and the likes, because he was fantastic. And he faultless again. What you know, I wouldn't even say a resurgence, because you know he was fantastic at the end of his first season, where he started off and he struggled in that Brentford game, converted to right back, and now he's one of the best right backs in the league.
Yeah.
And
no England call up is criminal, by the way.
we know, unfortunately, the reasons
Yeah.
behind that.
There's a reason for that, but who knows what
That's
that
not
is.
to do with on the football pitch.
No,
That's
no,
for
and
sure.
yeah, I'm sure.
But he was fantastic as well. But another key performer and some of people's man of the match. Bargav said if there's no goal, he picked Declan Rice, the £105 million man. We was all looking for this game without Rodri. That midfield battle was something that we could win, and he was the key reason why we thought we could win it. And I thought today we won that midfield battle, especially in the second half.
Yeah.
Thanks to this man. Even when we struggled, he regained the ball a lot with the transitions.
Yeah.
Alex, I honestly, I could talk so much about this man. I've got the name on the back of the shirt, but Alex, man, wow. Talk. I'm speechless with that performance I saw from Ben White today. So you have to find the words for me.
From Declan Rice or
Declan Rice,
yeah. Sorry, but I mean, yeah, I think he's one of those players who is generational in terms of what he brings. It's not something that a lot of other players can do. You know, in terms of his ability to go sideline to sideline, you know, his ability to read situations and break up play. You know, you watch him so many times, like seeing it from our point of view, from watching it on a TV, you see something and you see that pass is about to go, and then you see him move, and you're like, yeah, he already knows. And obviously, those who have played any sort of sport, whether it be football or not, you know how much more difficult it is to see something when you're down playing on the pitch than if you can see it from above. And I think that is something that is incredible to me. How much he's offered us, and I think when you look at you look at price tag, you can look at whatever, but it's not. There's not many teams who have got a player who can do that. You know, I think the last one that really springs to mind to that extent is N'Golo Kante when he sort of came onto the scene. I'd say at Leicester, yes, but at Chelsea, so much more. And yeah, just so good at reading those situations and breaking up play and stopping counters. But I think Rodri and him both share the ability to break up play and then find someone very quickly. It's not just put it out for a throw in or tackle somebody so that it goes out for a throw in. It's they're able to keep the ball in and keep the pressure on. And that is priceless when you're playing football because, you know, if you can win it, but the higher up you win it, the better. You know, that is the rule.
And we're able to pin teams in. We've seen that a lot where we don't concede anywhere near as many goals on transition anymore. And a big reason for that is Declan Rice. Our defensive statistics, which is what I was talking about to a lot of Arsenal fans, non-Arsenal fans, saying that we are much better defensively. But it was hard to quantify that because of simple, stupid errors that we've made. Saka for the goal against Fulham, Jorginho against Spurs, of course, and you look at those have proven pivotal in the end. To the other points that we did drop at home came in games where we made those silly errors in games that I thought controlled quite well, whilst not being at our best, especially against Tottenham. So yeah, Declan Rice has been a massive part of that in us looking a lot more secure, stabilized in the middle. The next thing that I want to see from Declan Rice is, because what his career has gone leaps and bounds. We spoke about Gabriel's improvement. He just seems to take his game to a next level year on year. The next thing, the final form for Declan Rice, is to really get that passing, that progressive passing, breaking through the lines with confidence. Let's hope that he can get to that, because that's what we get with certain Thomas Partey a lot, with his risk taking in playing it through the lines, and Zinchenko. We can take the load and the pressure off there, and he takes that to the next level. We're then talking about the best defensive midfielder in the world. He's arguably, I mean, he's up there anyway, because was he nominated for a Ballon d'Or as well?
Yeah.
He was up there. So yeah, so he's one of the best players anyway. But then we can really say him and Rodri, that's where they've got, and he separates above him, because he's got the athleticism, reading of the game, the leadership, the courage, the braveness to do it as well. So yeah, that's the one thing. But apart from that, today did his job to a T. If you guys voted for him for man of the match, the percentages that we got right now is that, yeah, he's joint second with William Saliba in the votes with 26%, and the goal scorer, Gabriel Martinelli. You mentioned earlier on, I don't know if this might be before the stream started, which is why we were late. We're chatting a bit, guys. But you said to me that when Gabriel Martinelli came on, he didn't just change the game in terms of that. He changed the crowd in that, in how we reacted. I thought it's a great point you mentioned there, though, Alex, because the crowd were very tense.
Yeah.
In that first half. I was watching it with my sister, Alicia, in the chat, who was in earlier. She's probably still watching now. Big up to yourself, sis. And I was saying, man, the crowd feel just as tense and nervous as the players, how they were reacting to things. David Raya didn't help in those first 20 minutes, but that pressure valve released as soon as Martinelli was there. I'll let you talk about it, because you were the one that brought the point.
Oh, no, that's all right.
Defo,
No. Well, yeah, like you say, I think we were quite quiet, which is not. I'm not blaming the fans at all. I think they were nervous, as you would be. I think there'd been not a great deal to sort of go on. There's not a great deal to cheer for. There was a few tackles. There was a few times we won the ball back. The usual City kick the ball out of play. That's getting cheered. We all know that. But I think that when he came on, there's little things like nutmegs, actually driving at players and committing players. He was demanding 2 City players every time he ran. And I think that that's a compliment. It's something that Saka gets 2, if not 3 sometimes. And I think that he's someone who, like, goals and assists wise, is the next thing to come in terms of getting those greater, those much bigger numbers that I think he's able to do. Because he's not afraid to shoot, and that is something that I get frustrated with. Actually, that's probably the one thing that I get frustrated with Arsenal the most, is just not shooting, because I think it's very difficult to it's very difficult to sort of quantify what Martinelli brings in terms of, like, whether you say it's dribbling at people, is that a thing that you can measure in terms of, you can measure successful dribbles or unsuccessful dribbles. But I think that the ability to liven up a crowd is not something that you can give to numbers. It's just something that some people have and some players don't. I always think of Santi Cazorla was the one who always used to get, I was going to say get me excited, but that sounds a bit dodgy.
I mean, I think he got a lot of Arsenal fans excited in that way as well, my bro. But now, 100% agree with you, Alex, because there's some of the intangibles that we don't think of, that that we like to look at things as so factual with nowadays, with everything with statistics and in depth and charts and everything like that. But we sometimes forget how footballers make you feel. And watching Martinelli leaves you on the edge of your seat, even when he's just facing up and attacking a player. You're cheering him. You say, go on. Let's see what you can do in this moment here. You can't quantify that in terms of how even that makes the opponent feel in that moment in time. You mentioned Santi Cazorla. He was someone that gave you the oohs, the ahs when you watch him play with the silky feet, the knocks in the touches, one side to side. Also, how that makes that opponent feel there. You feel demoralized when you try and press someone like that. I think Zinchenko has that sort of to his game as well. Not to a Santi Cazorla level, but he has that. Oh, I'm not going to press this guy because I'll just end up looking silly afterwards. Whereas Martinelli, he gives you that driving one-on-one. You saw even. I'm not sure if it led to anything at this moment, but when he was going forward, Kyle Walker and Bernardo Silva tracking back in that moment, and he just stops Kyle Walker, does a little nutmeg, and gets the crowd up again, and gets the momentum building. 100% correct to talk about Martinelli.
He drove inside, and I think he switched it. Switched it
Yes,
out, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I think
Odegaard,
Odegaard, and he took a shot after that.
Yeah,
yeah.
30 yards.
He keeps doing that. It's
He
getting
does
a
do
little
that,
bit frustrating. But
yeah, no, I remember. I do remember shouting at the TV because
I do.
You know what? The thing is, I get frustrated, but then if he scores, then But we said that about Partey for about 50,000 long shots, didn't we? So,
No.
and then when
he
he
won
put one in against Spurs, I was like, oh, he can shoot anytime he wants now.
Exactly. Trust me. Tell me. And that's what we feel about Odegaard. 15 goals. Now you can shoot. I'll get frustrated. I remember in the PSV match when he scored. Yeah. My sister will be able to vouch for this. I said, so what are you doing? Don't shoot. Just play the ball. And he shot and he scored. So I was like, okay, I'll shut up now. It's definitely true. Mr. W says, thing is, if Trossard hadn't picked up that injury, bet we wouldn't have seen Martinelli on at half time. True. I think we definitely would have seen Martinelli at some point in the game, but not for 45 minutes. So that's a good point. So what does the saying go? The sayings for this, I can't quite think of one, but there's always a silver lining, isn't there? I think that kind of works for this one. But yeah, there's a silver lining in this situation. Trossard picked up that injury. Oh, let's hope it's not a long-term one because we've seen when he's played as well, we've been playing our best football. But yeah, Martinelli coming on changed it. Bargav Martinelli is so high octane. Exactly that there. And you know what we're going to do for the last 10 minutes or so before we do this? We go into the player ratings, guys. Make sure you smash that like button if you haven't done so already. Subscribe if you're new. We've got plenty of people watching here right now. I really do appreciate you all. Thank you for all your interactions in the chat as well. I'm sorry that we haven't been able to get through all of them. But if you do have any questions at all whilst we're going through these player ratings, I'll put a star on them. Or any hot points that you want to put out there, not even necessarily questions, just things that you want to mention, definitely get them into the chat and we can discuss them whilst we go through the player ratings here with myself and Alex. Let's start off with the man that we spoke about at the very start in David Raya. What are you going to rate David Raya in this game?
I'm going to give him a 6.5.
Yep.
Which may seem harsh. I don't know. I'm with ratings.
I think that's fair. No, I do think that's a fair rating because if you base it off if you just do it on the first start, you probably say a 5 or 4. Yeah. But he really did improve a lot in that second half, and his passes out to Jesus was an outlet. And when we made those slight tactical tweaks, and he understood, and we weren't capitalized for those mistakes, he really adjusted well, and that's what you want from these players. I think another thing Gary Neville was saying, we might have to make a substitution and that here, because Arteta said there's been occasions where I wanted to substitute the goalkeeper. He hasn't quite done it there. But yeah, 6.5. Yeah. I agree with that. So I'm happy to give a 6.5 for Raya. Before we move on into the next player as well, because Anthony did say something here in the chat, and I want to hear your thoughts on it as well. But I can't quite get let me try. Where's the comment? Here it is. Raya out, Ramsdale in now. So what do you make of that? Because I've seen Mr. W kind of hint towards it too, that he would go with Ramsdale. And if Arteta is being truthful when he says that, this position's up for grabs, if there is going to be room for rotation, that's what I'm trying to. Well, he's kind of said it like that, hinted towards it. What do you think? Would you, after the international break, bring Ramsdale back in?
No, I wouldn't. And the reason why is because I think we've seen what he can do when he plays well. And we've seen a number of things that I think, one is coming for crosses, aerial presence in his box is a big thing for Raya. He catches a lot of balls. Yes, this first half he was terrible, but I think outside of the first half, I can't think of loads of mistakes that he's made personally. I think that with Ramsdale, it's a really difficult one because I love Ramsdale. Like, I think that the situation has been mismanaged now a little bit for me in terms of there's no clear line, and obviously it's Arteta's team. He can do what he wants with it, but there's no clear line where he says, "Oh, Ramsdale's playing cups or Champions Leagues, or and Raya's playing this." There's no line, so every time somebody makes a mistake, it's like, well, why isn't this person playing? Whereas if you just said, like with Matt Ryan, he said, "You're only playing cups." That's it. It's a really difficult. It's a really difficult thing for me to think, but I don't think I'd say, Ramsdale, you're back to number one, because then I think that saying to anybody that you're number one is dangerous when you have two good goalkeepers. I saw that comment. Yeah, I saw Anthony's comment. I think we as a team, we lost that game. I think we were very bad. Obviously, there's a mistake in there, but I think that we were very naive in terms of how we approached the game. I think that, much like today, our first half was really, really bad, and second didn't get better. Whereas today, we managed to get better against a much better team with respect to Lons. And two mistakes cost us dearly against Lons. But he's not going to stop playing that way. And the risk reward of having him in there, I feel, is greater in terms of with Raya. I think when we get through, when we play out of the press, or when he finds that pass, he tries it a lot, but that's what he's been asked to do. Like, he's not doing that because the manager said not to. That's not how players work. If a manager says you need to play out, and try and find this pass, they're going to keep doing it.
And that's where I agree with you in this as well. I totally understand the likes of the Anthony and Mr. W's thoughts on Raya, and that they would bring in Ramsdale because of the errors, and Arteta's kind of been ruthless with Ramsdale. But for me, Alex said the point what I was going to make is he continues to play the way that Arteta wants to do. And from what I've seen, I think the biggest problem that Arteta has with Ramsdale is Ramsdale will abandon the plan mid-game because of an error or because of something not quite working, and he will just instantly go long and choose not to do so, which, it completely affects our build-up, and we've seen it in those sort of moments there. Whereas David Raya, he's continued to do it even when he struggled. Yes, he has, and he's not performed anywhere near the level that I believe he can get to, and what Arteta even really wants from him to do on a consistent basis. Because yes, we were fortunate to not get punished in that first half as well. You're right. But another thing that we kind of need to remember is, how many games has he played? He's not even played 8. He's not even played 8 games yet. It's six games, if that.
But 5 or 6.
Yeah. And I think the reason we feel like this is because we have such an affinity with Ramsdale and we know his quality, and there is such competitive depth in that area of the pitch.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Havertz, we're kind of trusting and relying on him because we know we're going to have to play him if and he's going to have to perform if Arsenal are going to achieve the things that we want to do this season. So we've been a little bit more patient with him there. Whereas with Ramsdale, it's hard, it's hard to really rotate in that position. But I would continue with David Raya as well. Main reason being he consistently does what Arteta wants him to do, and he relieves a lot of pressure from his crosses as well. By the way, I think that's such an underrated skill for a goalkeeper because I've played at a decent level as a defender, as a centre back, and my favorite goalkeepers I've ever played with are goalkeepers that are commanding in crosses because it takes so much pressure off you when that ball is being played in deep and you're like, you instantly like, I'm in trouble here. This might go beyond me. My keeper comes out and clears it, even if he clears me in the process of it all, and he gives you that calmness and that assurance. Whereas it's kind of ironic to say because he didn't give us that calmness and assurance in the opening minutes, but he still has that for me, and that's what he edges over Ramsdale.
And I think Westbird has made a point down at the bottom there about. Isn't that what Raya did later on in the second half? And I think, yes, he decided, or that it was possibly the information was given to him, play some longer passes, relieve the pressure. But I don't think that was, I think he'd done that for most of the second half. He was trying some long balls.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably an instruction that came at half time, maybe to try and relieve some of the pressure off of us, because I think that City, outside of the times where we gave it to them, I don't feel like they were particularly threatening. Like not obviously they have their moments because they're Manchester City, but I don't feel like there was a lot that was being cheered for until we started giving it away to them, which happened a couple of times. But yeah, great point. I think that's something that people don't think about it in those terms a lot of the time. But, we look at what could come of Rice and Partey as a partnership, and eventually we're probably going to move on from Partey, and there'll be another player to come in. Probably going to, eventually we're going to have someone come in for Jesus, Zinchenko. Those are the players that I'm looking at. Probably are, being very harsh. Those would be the next ones that would be replaced in my head. But I say Jesus because by de facto Nketiah is one who I would replace.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of the fan base would agree with that there. But it would be very interesting to see what does happen after the international break with that Ryan Ramsdale situation. Next player, so we're giving Rice 6.5. Benjamin White. We didn't speak about him. I feel we never speak about him enough in my eyes because the way his character and personality is, don't care, doesn't really care, and gets on with it. But he was outstanding again today. He provided an option down on that right for Jesus a lot. Sometimes you'd give it him, sometimes he wouldn't. He does that. He does that consistently. Defensively, he did his due diligence. Who was even playing on the left for City in the first half?
Foden.
Maybe. Yeah, Foden's joy didn't come out of Ben White. He always came when he came in centrally. Dropped in deep. When I think there was one time he skipped past Rice in that scenario, and then looked like City were dangerous there. And Alvarez had a shot blocked by Gabriel. And then every time that before Foden did get a bit of joy, it was centrally and it was away from Foden. And then when Jeremy Doku started on the right and then moved over to the left, got no joy out of Benjamin White either. For me, I would give Ben White, 1-0 win against Manchester City. I'm giving him 8. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I feel very comfortable with 8. I think that across the board we were very disciplined. I think that one thing that I noticed was, well, it was pointed out in the commentary, but I think you notice it throughout, is that their front three were incredibly narrow, and they're obviously trying to occupy the our back four, occupy them all. I say back four in a loose term, obviously, because we sort of play all around at the moment, as football is. As Arteta said about there being 200 and whatever formations. I can't remember what the exact quote was, but I'm sure some people will remember. And the out ball was always their fullbacks or whoever was occupying their fullback position, often Kyle Walker. I think we had difficulty with Kyle Walker, but I think we're willing to bank on the fact that when we're crossing it in, we essentially have three, and when Tomiyasu came on, four centre-backs in the box, and we got Declan Rice and Thomas Partey. And when you think about Partey coming back, and if Tomiyasu starts, you got six players there who are very, very good in the air. And I'd probably count Jesus as being relatively good in the air as well.
Yes,
that is something that is I think very, very, very important for us, because it means that we have a style of defending that we can opt to do in terms of sitting narrow and letting people cross it in, and unless they've got your Hojlunds or your Paul Onuachu is one that always comes to my head for some reason. I think as a football manager, to be honest, but we won't get into that. It's a real sort of strength, and Ben White adds a massive amount to, he's improved a lot in his one-on-one defending, which obviously as a centre back you do come one-on-one, but probably not as much obviously as a full back. So I think that's something he's adapted really well to, and obviously going forward, I've commented on it with him and Saka in the past. So yeah, 8 I'm very happy with.
8 for Benjamin White. Definitely agree with you there, because we've seen against Rashford in the first half, he struggled. Second half, he was a bit better. There were still those moments. And then I remember one game in particular last season was Mitoma. Ran him ragged. He'll still have those tests to come, of course, but I definitely think that I've seen an improvement in his 1v1 defending, which is, remember in the documentary what Carlos Cuesta said to him, your best ability is your ability to learn. He learns so much, and he's our Swiss Army knife in Ben White. So definitely agree with you there. We kind of spoken on these two a bit, so just for the sake of just making sure we can get through everyone that we haven't spoke about, William Saliba, I want to give him a 10.
Yeah, well, if we're saying in the scheme of the game, I'm always against giving 10s because I think that you can always do better, but let's do it. Why not? It's your show.
Hey, Alex. It's true, because the reason it's a 10, the magnitude of this game, the occasion, the opponent he's facing. Arsenal keep a clean sheet against Manchester City, the first team to keep a clean sheet since Brentford, who was David Raya was also in goal in that game. Okay, but that's the third time Manchester City haven't scored in 2023. Two of them was when David Raya was in goal. Hey, I'm pushing my Raya agenda out there. But yeah, 10 for Gabriel. He's my man. I don't mind giving other players 10s as well, if you would like to. But Gabriel, Saliba 10. What do you want to give to Gabriel?
If Saliba's getting a 10, I would say that Gabriel probably an 8.5.
8.5.
I mean, I could just as easily give him a 9, but it's
you're very harsh. I'm joking.
Yeah.
What a message.
It's actually really difficult giving ratings in numbers. I always struggle with it. It's just because you talk about it so much.
Exactly. Mr. W says a 9. Mrs. W says a 9.5. Gabriel, 9 at least, says Miss.
Okay, well, maybe it was a 9 then.
What was that? We're going to change it for a 9.
Oh, yeah. If the chat box is saying 9, then we'll have to go with 9.
Queen W has spoken. So it says 8.5. I've changed it to a 9. There we go. And Mr. W. The W's are spoken, so we have to give Gabriel. And I think that's fair. Like, I would like to give them both 10s, but we'll just be here giving everyone a 10 because that's me being too generous.
Well, we're in good mood today, so no one's getting low score, are they?
Exactly that. A player that we haven't really quite spoken about, which we know there was a lot of stuff before the game with this player, with
Yeah.
Alexander Zinchenko. But what did you make of his performance today?
I might be being harsh in terms of I don't necessarily remember him doing anything, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in football,
Yeah,
especially as a defender. I think you'd probably say it's definitely not one of his shining light performances,
yeah,
but maybe a 7.5, 7. If you can't remember someone doing anything bad, then that usually means they probably haven't done anything that amazing either. So you
yeah.
sort of
I think Zinchenko is one of them. This today, without you'll have to rewatch the game to
Mm.
really notice what Zinchenko was doing, because when there is so much emotion that we felt within that
Yeah,
first
yeah,
half, it's like you
yeah,
can't you kind of focusing on certain players and certain individuals that are doing actions that make you
yeah,
stand out. So Raya, we was nervous with him. Rice, he was mopping up everything, and Gabriel Jesus, who was everywhere, and our release valve in that first
yeah.
half. So yeah, this one's kind of more of a rewatch for Zinchenko. I totally
I
agree with
watched
you.
I watched every Arsenal game 3 times.
Do you? I'll
Yeah,
be interested to hear your thoughts on Zinchenko on the
yeah,
third time. Yeah, you'll
yeah,
have. I'll because I usually watch them twice, to be fair, but the 3 times makes more sense, especially with what you want to do as well, by the way, because
yeah.
you get to really learn a lot. And this game, to be honest, like, yes, there's a lot of fans that are saying, "Oh, it was boring," they
Oh,
didn't
no,
show
it's a game of chess. It
this.
was unreal.
This is for the football
Tactical.
perverts. This
Yeah,
is
yeah, massively.
yeah,
It's the slight tactical tweaks that were made are sort of, I mean,
yeah,
I'd say, like, I counted, like, 9, but I was watching that in terms of there,
yeah.
in terms of ever so slight things like, pushing Zinchenko and Rice next to each other and then saying, actually, we don't want them next
We,
to each other
we want
anymore. We want them
Zinchenko wide.
wider. Yeah,
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 I
yeah. So
noticed that as well.
all sorts of little things like that.
Mm,
And I think how we built up from goal kicks when we started to feel the pressure a lot. Rice would come and sit in between the two centre halves sometimes as well.
yeah,
And when Partey came on, that was the real switch, I think. And how we pressed when Havertz came on, Erdegaard and Havertz pressed as a front two, and yeah. Anyway, go on forever.
100%. We'll get into the substitutes as well. Don't you worry.
Yeah,
But the next player we'll speak about is Declan Rice.
I
If I
think, yeah.
if I'm giving a 10 for Saliba, I feel like we have to give a 10 for Deck as well.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be at least a 9.5, isn't it? If we're giving Saliba man of the match, then 9.5 or 10.
Yeah,
I'm happy for either.
I'm happy. I think the chat will go with 9.5 because we've got a tough crowd here today. I'm only joking. We don't. It's just me. I'm very happy. 9.5 for Rice. Are you guys happy with that? We wax lyrical about him. And as I said, if I wanted to make it a 10, the only thing I would probably do is, as I said, if he would have scored, I think he got in some
Yeah.
good attacking positions as well, didn't he, Alex? But he was the
Yeah, no, he did. He made a couple of good runs to open up space a little bit. I noticed that sort of third man running between centre back and full back a couple of times to create passing lanes. And I think that's what you need as a midfielder. You've got to be unselfish in terms of your willingness to run to
yeah,
help other players out, especially against City, where if you don't move them around, then you're going to really struggle to break anything down.
exactly.
And we've got Pep's gone for a defensive performance, which is not something you see very often, and it was almost masterclassed, as you might. I mean, I don't. Yeah, that's another thing I could go into forever. Is I don't know why they played the way they did. Not in a negative way. It's just a very big change. I suppose
Yeah,
it might be personnel related, or it might be that he wanted to try and kill the game, which he did very well for a very
yeah.
long period of time.
The respect that we have now for
Yeah.
Pep Guardiola to kind of make these adjustments. Whew, that's big. But it's a good point you've made right there. Jorginho. What do you mean?
I would go for
Steady
an 8.
performance.
I'd
Yeah,
say
8.
I'd say 7.5 or an 8. I think that playing out like build up phase, he was very key to me. I think in terms of his bouncing out, I don't remember him making any glaring mistakes, but maybe I need to rewatch it.
No, I think you're right. I think you are. The reason it kind of shocked me is because he didn't do anything that was outstanding. But now that you say it, in that first half, I can't remember him giving the ball away or making
It's
an error.
elements of control, and I
Yeah.
think that then you could make an argument that it would be lower because he didn't do anything outstanding. So maybe 7.5, like you've just put up there. But I think that it's I don't remember him breaking the lines that many times. I
Yeah.
suppose that might be something, but that wasn't really his role. He
Yeah,
played a
exactly.
lot he played a lot facing our goal.
Yeah, it's true. He was the one that we was giving it first, and they were trying to pressure him there, trying to set those sort of traps.
Yeah.
He didn't fall for them. So yeah, I think 7.5 is fair. And once again, a bit like Zinchenko, when we rewatch the game, we'll see how important they were in that first half,
Yeah.
in particular, and in the second, because he did come off in the 70th minute. Actually, yeah, he
Yeah.
stayed on longer than I thought he would have. To be fair, about 10 minutes longer, but fair play. Whilst we got 7.5 as well from the W's as
Yeah.
well.
There we go.
So what are we saying for Martin Odegaard?
I'm going to go with, and I'm probably a bit of hate for this maybe, but I'm going to go with a 6.5 or a 6. I think he was quite poor.
I'm happy with the 6.
I think he was very quiet. I think that it's not necessarily just his fault, obviously, in a game where he's marked very tightly, and he's blocked out a lot. But I think that, he's reached a level now where you have to be harsh on him and say, if you're being marked, you need to find a way of not being marked.
Yeah.
It's the same, it's incredible that Saka still does the same thing over and over and over again, but still nobody can stop him cutting inside onto that left foot. So I think when you look at Odegaard, you have to hold him to the same standards that we hold the rest of the team.
Exactly, 100%. And I think I agree with your rating again. I've not disagreed with any of your ratings so far. And what I would say in terms of praise for Odegaard, even when it's not his day in possession with the ball at his feet, he's not quite executing.
Yeah.
The level the floor with
Yeah.
Odegaard is extremely high. You're not really going to get lower than a 6. There's one game I've ever seen him in an Arsenal shirt, and it was this season against Spurs, where I thought everything he did was poor. But even then, how he leads in the press, how he manages in terms of the organisation with the team. He was relentless. I think I remember one occasion he literally went from one side of the pitch, pressing them. Man City worked it all the way to the other end, and he was there, chased it the whole way. And then Rice was like, actually, my turn now. You've done all that running, so there it is for me. I've got to do it. So now, absolutely correct there with my Odegaard. Not his best day, but still gives us.
Well, it's not something that
tremendous
I'd seen
leadership.
from him before he joined. In terms of, I watched a fair amount of him because I am a football nerd. I love football. If there's ever a 16-year-old who makes his debut for Real Madrid, I'm watching as many YouTube vids as possible. And it wasn't really his thing, but I think that, maybe it wasn't his thing as harsh, but it wasn't something that stood out from what I watched of him. But watching him press now, he leads it in terms of, and you have to lead by example as a captain anyway.
Yeah.
But I think when he presses, we picked our moments to press quite carefully in this game, a lot more carefully than we have done in previous games. But when we went really well, I thought, and there's a few times once we got it right that we forced City to kick the ball out of play or to play it long. And I remember Saliba winning a few challenges against Haaland, from balls hit up the channel. It's really good to see. When it pans out, pressing is a very, very effective.
Exactly, it is, and that's the threat. That's why Man City were quite conservative in how they play as well, because of players like him. Absolutely, you're correct. And the W's agree with us as well. The Wezzes in the chat agree with us as well. And yeah, we're very easy to agree with each other when Arsenal win, I guess.
Yeah.
But another player we've spoken about, Jesus. What are you willing to give him, Alex? The floor is yours for this one.
I'm going to go 9.5.
9.5 up. unfair. I agree with that.
Only
Everything
because he's
goal.
not. He was my man of the match, but he wasn't yours. So I'm going up there.
Yeah.
9.5.
The only thing that why I wouldn't give him a 10, it's not because with Jesus, I don't measure this player off of goals. I'll be real. I don't.
Yeah.
It's those sort of chance creation and what it gives us bringing us up the pitch. If you could have played it into the box a couple
Oh
of
yeah.
those times.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that the glaring one is when he goes down, and the penalty obviously wasn't given, but that particular one, he could have cut it a little bit earlier before he's tried to sort of dribble through. But I think that that's something that comes from, and that was probably the one thing I agreed with when Gary Neville said it was he has moments of erraticity, of being erratic, and that is, but you wouldn't want to take that out of him because that's what gives him the flair. That's his thing. That's what sets him apart from other players when he's dribbling on the ball. But I think when we get him down the middle, that's when he's at his best. Because then he has the ability to go out wide when he wants to, and it gives us a little bit more fluidity.
Yeah, exactly that. Totally agree with you, Alex. Next player, Eddie Nketiah. We're not, we'll talk. I think with this, we deserve another like another video or stream in itself when we talk about Eddie, because I agree with you in terms of what you mentioned earlier. I would sell and I would look to improve in that area. But in terms of today's performance, what would you give Eddie in this? It's tough.
I think 5.5 or a 6. I'd maybe a 5. I think it's difficult for me. It's just me being nice, but I don't think I can give below a 5 to players. I don't think that there's many performances that I've seen that would warrant lower than a 5, like in watching football. Obviously, Paul didn't really offer that much in terms of pressing. So, maybe I could sink lower. But I think the willingness to run that he shows is the only thing that keeps him above a 5 for me. Because I think that if you're not willing to run, then that's it over for me. Because I think the very minimum on a football pitch, as anyone who's played football will know, is that you have to work hard. And if you're not willing to work hard, you're probably not playing.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. You're right.
Yeah.
Bargav says 7, and he actually did mention earlier on that he was his man of the match. And I said, that's why I said he must be trying to sell him in that one, because for me, he worked. He did his due diligence in terms of working hard. But what I want from my striker, hold up play, and linking others into it, and trying to create chances. That you do need that sort of create something out of nothing at points, and especially with how we play with our forwards, we don't. It's night and day between him and Gabriel Jesus. I wanted to give him a 4. You say 5. Can we agree on a 4.5?
Oh yeah, do it. Yeah. Yeah, I'd even do it on a 4. I don't mind. I think that he's one that I think, and this is me again trying to be nice, but I think the stage is too big for him here. I think that a move abroad like Balogun did, he can recapture, because we're talking, you can talk about him not performing for us in terms of for our first team, but you're talking about the most prolific goal scorer in England youth and in academy youth that we have ever seen. So, it's not like he doesn't know how to score goals, but if it's not working out for him, it's not working out for him. And I don't think that we should
the level
try and hold. Yeah, the level is different and the demands are different.
Absolutely. And Wesburn, do you know what? I think you're actually kind of right as well. I say he did work hard because of that one action, which you pointed out here, the block on the halfway line.
Yeah.
Don't think he quite worked out. I saw Erdegaard running past him a lot too, and I'm like, come on. You're our leading man, our front line. You need to be leading the press in these certain areas. And I think 4.5 we'll go with Eddie. And
confidence is low, put it that way.
Definitely. definitely. Trossard for 45 minutes.
For the 45 minutes he was on the pitch, 6.5. Yeah.
I'm happy with the 6 because, you could tell he was now that Arteta said it, you could kind of see that he was carrying something.
Yeah, I don't think he's one of those players where I think if he's carrying something, you notice anyway because of his style of play is very jinky and very sort of. Whereas I don't think he particularly offered much in the way of that today.
Yeah, and G. Will said earlier on, I wouldn't play Trossard as a winger. He doesn't have that sort of explosiveness that we have from a Martinelli or a Saka. And
I don't think we've got a lot of options, unfortunately, at the moment. I think that's the reason he's playing there. I think Arteta would likely say a similar thing if you asked him, and there was no consequences for saying anything to the media. I think that we lack a lot of depth, which is why players are playing in positions that they aren't necessarily their prime positions.
Yeah, true. 100% agree with you. Bargav says, is he going for international duty? It doesn't look like it. Arteta did say after the game that he has picked up an injury. He felt something in his hamstring. And because of that, I highly doubt that he will go.
Is it Saka, Saliba,
Saka,
and
Saliba,
Trossard are the three who probably aren't going, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, most likely. As for that as well, Trossard 5.5, Trossard 5. I hear that, guys. Yeah, we went for a 6. But yeah, I hear that. Now the substitutes to wrap it up. We spoke about this guy as well, Martinelli. What are you going to say for?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd probably put him in the same brand as Jesus in terms of 9.5, or I could stretch to a 10. Obviously, when you score the only goal in a 1-0 win against City, it's difficult to argue because I'm sure some people in the chat will put 10 in a second, as they put them for their man of the match. So I'm not gonna complain about that.
I agree. I put a 9.5 and I went with the first one. The reason why, nitpicking again, very much a nitpicker in this situation. Westbird mentioned something. He still has his head down a lot.
Oh yeah, I remember him running into the midfield, and I thought, great, he's broken away. And I remember shouting at the TV, going, "Play it to Odegaard, play it to Odegaard, play it to Odegaard," and then he just got tackled. And I was like, yeah, it's something that, as much as you want to take it out of him, it's that almost childlike thing of like, you can imagine him doing it back in Ituano and in Brazil, like doing it on, in football. And it's just one of those things that it comes with, I think, experience, but also when you're that type of player, it gets the crowd going when you see someone doing that. And actually, you look at all of that, but then against Chelsea, when we went, I think we were down to 10 men. I can't remember now that game. Yeah. I think it was the leveler where Kante slips or whatever it was. And he had his head down running, and I was like, I hope he picks up before he shoots, takes one look up, and then goes back down and then scores. He does it.
He will. Do you know what? Remember that Sporting Lisbon game last year, Alex? When he went on that away from home and he went on that ridiculous run, and it was a block on the line from that St. Just who made that block. He will score one of them goals where he does it one day. And yet it's one of them. I think you kind of said it. Yeah, he'll kind of get it with experience, but it's another thing. Do you want to take that out of his game? Do you want to take that sort of that street football out of him, kind of what Jesus has, because that's their X factor and that's what they have there as well. But I think he will have to do it less and lift his head up on more occasions, because we could have literally created another chance in that moment there. 8.5, got the crowd up. He scares defenders, but like the missus said, he needs to get his head up. Exactly. Yeah, 200%. He scares defenders definitely too. Yeah, his weakness can be that lack of complete left foot, but that's still not easy for defenders. He can strike a ball with his left foot.
Yeah, he did one. His shot on target before the goal was the left foot, when it very broke away a little bit. Yeah, I think he scored one. I remember him scoring one on his left foot. Have to pull it out of an archive now, but it was from the edge of the box. He dragged it, maybe less. No, Not
Leicester.
Leicester.
You
Was it
correct? No,
Leicester?
I was at that game. Yeah, it
Oh,
was
were you?
Leicester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brain.
4-2.
Um,
Well, I remembered. I was
yeah.
thinking of West Ham when he did it near post, but he dragged it far
Yeah,
from
that's what I
outside the
was
box
thinking of.
against West
Yeah.
Ham. No, you're right.
I watch if ever I'm in a bad mood, I'll watch all of Arsenal's goals, 22, 23 or whatever
I did
season I
that.
feel like. I do it sometimes. It's usually after we lose.
Yeah. It's so true. Do you know what I've done it as well? Like I've watched those comps where we watch like every goal from that season that
Yeah.
we've scored, and instead of the music that they have in the background or the commentary, I'll get and open another tab and I'll watch and I'll put a song on like I've seen from another comp
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, very, very. Yeah. So I don't know. We're Arsenal obsessed at times. I know we are, but it helps us feel better after we
Yeah,
lose. But
definitely.
we haven't really experienced that so far. Not
Not
yet.
yet. Not yet.
Not in the Prem.
In fact, it's funny. When I called my friend earlier,
Yeah.
who's an Arsenal fan, big Arsenal fan, he was like, "Invincibles,"
Hey.
and I was like, "Well, you know, so far, so good."
Mate,
but,
maybe.
it's
Yeah,
all fun
it
and
is all fun.
games.
Exactly. Thomas Partey. What are you guys and girls saying in the chat about Thomas Partey here? His performance. I want to give a 7,
Yeah, I think a 7 is fair. You know, he did a really nice little chip over midfield out to
Tomiyasu.
Tomiyasu. Yeah, didn't make any mistakes, but obviously, like I've just seen Mr. Wesbuzz, but he wasn't on for very long, so it's hard to
Yeah.
gauge a bigger number than that, to be honest. But like they say, calm, composed, and I think the excitement for me is what him and Rice can do as a partnership
In these big games.
in the
From
big
the start.
games as a double pivot, as people who break up play. You know, where Rice has been tasked with covering both sides of the pitch. You know, can you talk to them about covering one side each? And that's an even bigger.
100%. I'm with you on that one. The reason I gave him a 7 higher than a 6, that ball he played for Tomiyasu.
Oh
Heading
yeah,
it down
good
to
point. That
Havertz.
yeah. No, that's a good point. He did play that pass, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. And love Thomas Partey. The first thing I went, what a ball. Who played that pass? Saw it on the replay Partey. It's like, who else? Who else would it have been? And then the man that I mentioned who laid the assist for the goal, Tomiyasu. I mean, not Tomiyasu, Kai Havertz.
Yeah. Havertz, I'll put him at a 7.5 comfortably because I actually think also at the end for the last 4 minutes he did retain the ball very well. You know, like can say what you like about him in terms of playing a 5-yard pass, having a good first touch as a professional footballer, but in those moments, holding it in the corner, if I was being ridiculous, I'd boost it up to an 8 for just that because I love it when players do that, but I won't.
No, it's so important because he just took the sting out of it after we scored. Just keeping it calm, had that physical presence up there. You can go direct to him. He's very nimble and mobile as well, with not just being a tall guy. He's very deceptive. His speed and his physicality, his strength. He doesn't, because he's quite wiry and long, and how his body language is, his personality. He doesn't seem like someone who is going to be quite nippy and can have that physicality to his game. That's where he always gets people, and why he does divide so many opinions with that. Because there is more that you can get out of him for sure. We haven't seen it. The Havertz that I think Arteta sees in him that we can get to, but slow burner and these sort of performances will get you there, and building blocks. Exactly.
I think there's a reason he's a big part of the press when he's on. 8 points down, and I've just seen a 60 million down the drain. Havertz assists again.
Love that. I know we might have to sing it. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Big up to yourself each and every time. Hey, I know you're enjoying yourself. The thing is, I'm surprised that you can still type after 8 points down. So definitely
If
everyone
I
is
was 8
ahead.
points down, I wouldn't have responded to your chat about this show. I'll tell you that.
I'll be doing this by myself. If I
Yeah.
was doing this show 8 points down, I might get locked off on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
The channel would be shut. But yeah, now definitely Havertz 7.5. Arteta has as to manage him, Partey, and be selective in what games he plays, so protective. And so I'm sorry. I feel like I'm talking like I'm 8 points down at the moment. Sorry. Selective on what games he plays and protect so we can have for as many games as possible that he could be the difference this season. He was a good target man with skills, created chances for Odegaard and Martinelli when there was no space. Agree on that there. 7.5 for Havertz. Odegaard didn't run into him in there. And if I was 8 points down, I'd be dead as I don't drink. Yes, you'd be we'd be very worried then if he was 8 points down. Smash the like button, boys and girls. We beat City, indeed. Last player we'll get to, and then we'll call it a night. We've been for an hour and a half, a good 90-minute performance from me and Alex right here. It's just almost as good as the game, I guess.
Almost.
Exactly. And the man who had a big part to play as well for the goal in Takahiro Tomiyasu, our Japanese army knife, shall we say? Because he seems to put a job wherever he plays.
I'm not sure where he was playing when he came on, to be honest. I was watching him and I was thinking, I remember seeing him for the goal, and then after the goal, he was doing something and he got caught on the ball, or we got caught on the ball, and I thought, who's that? And he's running back, and then I heard Gary Neville or whoever the other commentator was go, oh, what's he doing up there? And I was like, it's like Tomiyasu. What's he up there again? But you can't complain. Nothing happened from it, and won the header for the goal. And I think can talk about where players should or shouldn't be, but he was in the right place for the goal. So yeah, I think I could 7.5 as well if I'm giving Havertz a 7.5.
7.5 for Takahiro.
Pre-assist gets him 0.5.
Exactly. The run itself, do you know what I mean? Like, that's Tomiyasu. I'm thinking, oh, he's made a good run in there. I'm thinking, Tomiyasu.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's percentages, isn't it? In terms of you look at that, and you look at Partey, and on another day we play it square and we don't do it. But for 7th minute, I'm going to go on a run. We'll see what happens from it, and of course it drops. Ake gets hit in the face. It goes in. So we you got to if you don't buy a ticket, you can win the lottery. That's one for you.
Exactly. I remember that one on FIFA. I used to get that all the
time.
You don't buy a ticket, you don't win a raffle. Nah, definitely. Tommy R2D2 exactly 7.5. Outstanding game. And boys and girls, that wraps it up there. We beat Manchester City in a huge win. We're not top, but we're joint top with them lot over the road. Yeah. But we are above Manchester City and we took a big scalp today. That's the most important thing. Not really in terms of the table as it stands at this point, but psychologically going into those fixtures, knowing that we can beat Man City, going over to the Etihad has a lot less pressure in terms of winning there. It's more of a, if you can grab a draw, that's a bonus there. That's obviously a next scout that we want to do. We want to go to Anfield and grab a win there eventually. We got our draw last year. Now we want to go and win in these grounds. We've got that psychological boost. We've done it against the very best. And I'm glad that you guys and girls have all been able to be in here with the chat and celebrate with us as well and discuss the game. But I am more than happy with my main man right here, my brother and Alex. Really appreciate you for jumping on, man. That was a great chat that we had. We could be going on for another hour and 30 minutes for sure. Talking about all the intricacies of the game. You know what I mean? We might have to do something in the future, Alex.
I'm always down. Yeah, honestly, I've
definitely.
I go on TGT a fair amount recently because I think
you're racking up the appearances on there. You're
gonna get I think he does stuff at 5 quite a lot, and obviously a lot of people have the jobs or work or whatever it might be. But I think, you know, I really enjoy talking about Arsenal. And I was going to say I'm trying to keep my screen time down. I'm trying to keep my typing time down is what I'm trying to do more than anything else, because I think it but I think it's a social thing, isn't it, going on here in a different way to what it is when you're typing on Discord, which is obviously great. So don't get me wrong, I love it. But I think that you know, I'm not big on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or anything. Oh, it's not Twitter anymore, is it? But yeah, I'm not big on any of those things. So I prefer to talk to people.
Me too. Me too. It's hard to get in touch with me. Everyone knows this. Everyone who knows me knows this. I'm hard person to reach at times because I'd much rather have a phone call, or I'd much rather have a conversation on stream. So now I really do appreciate you all, guys. Before I do give it a go, blessing to everyone in you in the chat. Erdogan Kenobi said, sad to be late, but you lot know this is the place to be after the game. Tereak, top class at what he does. Show him some love. Spread the word. We need to grow his following. And Odeguan Kenobi, the check is in the post already, my friend. Really appreciate that, man. Thank you to you guys who have tuned in. Before I go, Alex, is there anywhere that they can find you that you would like
to? I'm always in TGT Discord server, as you know.
As a fellow member of the Gooner Tour, definitely.
Really, really good place to discuss everything Arsenal. Especially, I mean, it's one of the reasons I left Twitter at the time, was just because I just didn't enjoy, you know, some of the stuff that goes on there. So I think I really enjoy the Discord server. You know, we'll have our moments where things get a little bit heated, but it's always a lovely place to go. And you know, football is football. You're always going to have disagreements, but it's the way in which you deal with them which is more important than themselves, I think.
Exactly.
But I really enjoyed the show. And yeah, love to come on again anytime.
Definitely. You're always welcome. The door's always open for you here, Alex. I really enjoyed it tonight. Yeah, the win, but even discussing it with a fellow like-minded gooner like yourself, man. So I really appreciate you. Boys and girls, we're going to wrap it up here. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week as well as we enter into Monday with our chests held high and going into work, also university, or wherever you're going, into school as well, guys, as Arsenal beat Manchester City, joint top of the league. Good night, people.